What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Let's talk about something the Kremlin desperately hopes nobody ever understands. Not the battlefield, not diplomacy, not even sanctions. I mean the one thing that actually decides whether Russia can continue this war or not. Its economy. And right now it is hanging by a thread so thin that even Putin's own advisors are privately panicking. They cannot show it obviously, but inside they are. The Russian government has shifted the entire country onto what they proudly call military rails, which sounds grand and patriotic, like a nation united as a heroic struggle back in Second World War. But in reality, it's a last-ditch survival mode, a system that only works while the war continues and collapses the second war ends. Russia is burning through its human capital, its industry, its future, and its very ability to function once the shooting stops. This is not rebuilding, this is economic cannibalism. So today, let's talk about how the war economy system has twisted Russia's society, finances, workforce and military, why Russia now depends on the war to simply exist, and why the longer Putin postpones the end of this conflict, the more catastrophic the collapse will be on the day it finally comes. Because that collapse is inevitable. It is just a matter of time. It is not if, it is when. To understand the scale of this disaster, we first need to understand how the war economy even works. I don't blame you if you don't know, because after all, the smartest people in the Kremlin did not know either. Well, when Putin realized that the quick victory fantasy failed, the Russian government made a decision to convert the country into a military production machine. Factories that used to produce civilian goods now manufacture artillery shells and drones. Workers who once assembled refrigerators and cars are now welding armor plates and refitting armored personnel carriers and tanks built in 1972. Universities revise curriculums to teach applied drone warfare. It's an actual class, believe it or not, instead of civil engineering. Entire industrial towns shift their output to meet the demand of the front line. This process has a name: militarization of the economy. But here's the problem. War production is not productive. It does not generate wealth, only unless you're an oligarch. It consumes it. A tank does not create value, it is value destroyed in advance. A drone shot down 20 minutes after takeoff is gone forever, taking money, labor, materials and fuel with it. And now imagine this happening millions of times across 3 years, and still not going to stop. Russia is burning money faster than it can print propaganda to explain it. And to make sure this machine keeps running, the government has started paying absurd salaries to military-related jobs. A welder in a shell factory can earn more than a surgeon. You believe it? A mechanic at a tank repair plant in Siberia can make what a software engineer makes in Moscow. These wages are designed to pull workers out of normal jobs, and it works. But there is a catch, obviously. When everyone moves to the war economy, who is left to work at the rest of the economy? The answer, as you can guess it, is almost no one. And then the cracks begin to show. Bakeries cannot find staff, buses stop running because there is no drivers, hospitals lose nurses faster than they can hire new ones because the war factories pay triple, supermarkets try to lure people to unload trucks with signing bonuses, sounds familiar, right? Entire cities become hollowed out work camps where the only profitable job is to contribute to the war. War economy is not an economy, it is a dead man walking. That is the first problem of the war economy of the 21st century, the human capital. Let's now talk about the second major problem in our next chapter. When military salaries skyrocket, everyone else suffers. Just think about it. If a man can make 3 or 4 monthly salaries in 1 week by taking a job repairing tanks, why would he stay at his normal job? And when hundreds of thousands of people make the very same decision, well, suddenly the labor market collapses. Prices rise, but wages outside the military sector do not. The result is obviously inflation. Not just the one the government reports in carefully filtrated statistics, but the real inflation, the one that people feel when they try to buy food, medicine, clothing or pay the rent. If companies attempt to keep prices the same, another type of inflation happens. We're talking about shelf inflation, where products become worse in quality but cost more. Shrinkflation, when package sizes decreases but the price stays the same. cheaper substitutes, a loaf of bread that now lasts 2 days instead of 5, clothes that tear after one season, the disappearance of brand name medicine replaced by local equivalents which often simply do not work. And then what about food then? Russia now imports a gigantic percentage of seed material, fertilizers, animal feed, and genetics from abroad, something what Russia used to be famous for those things. When sanctions squeeze, food quality collapses. And meanwhile, military factories keep expanding, the only factories they do. They hire more, they demand more metal, fuel, electronic equipment, specialized tools. But Russia does not produce enough of any of this, so what happens? They strip the civilian sector. Railways slow down because locomotives are cannibalized for spare parts. Airplanes fly until they literally break mid-air because Russia cannot import key components. They don't produce them either. The construction industry loses workers to contract signing, so housing projects now stall. The entire economy becomes a funnel leading into the furnace of war. And here is where the darkest irony lies. The Kremlin calls this economic growth. But it's like measuring the success of burning your furniture to heat your house. I mean, sure, the room is warm today, but eventually you run out of chairs. And when the floorboards go, when columns disappear in smoke and ash, that's exactly when the whole house collapses around you. These were two significant problems of any war economy. But in the end, it's just money. Sooner or later, it can be replaced, rebuilt, the economy can even restart through a crisis. What cannot be replaced, however, are human lives, and this is yet another victim of such approach. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. Let's talk about men, working age men, the backbone of any economy, but especially one that relies on heavy industry. A modern state needs engineers, mechanics, builders, teachers, doctors, entrepreneurs, but the Kremlin needs one thing more than that. You guessed it, soldiers. And here is the unavoidable truth. The best soldiers are already dead. The early waves of recruits, the most physically fit, motivated, trained, experienced, were already thrown into Ukraine in 2022 and 2023. Many of them died. Those who survived were rotated to teach new recruits. But guess what? Those instructors have also been dying or burning out or simply being refused to right to live. Now Russia is sending men who have never held a rifle in their lives. Taxi drivers, factory workers, office clerks, high school graduates, convicts, migrants. It no longer matters who you are. The machine needs simply bodies. And conveniently enough, these bodies come from the ripest work age group. But here is the long-term catastrophe. When these men do not return or return disabled, amputated, physically broken, Russia loses not only soldiers, it loses electricians, carpenters, drivers, scientists, fathers. The economic future dies on the battlefield. A society cannot function when millions of its able-bodied men are gone. You cannot rebuild an economy on wheelchairs and graves. And what happens after the war? There will be no trained workforce even to restart civilian production, no young men to start families, no skilled labor to maintain infrastructure. Russia will face the same demographic cliff as post-Second World War Europe, except without the Marshall Plan for the investment or functioning institutions. This is a country burning the future to survive the present. Or better say, one man sacrificing everything to comfortably live another 10 to 20 years. Maybe more, maybe less. The war economy can only exist during war, and barely. It has no plan for peace. And here is the final and most terrifying truth. The Kremlin knows that when the war ends, the entire system collapses. Because how do you tell a man who earned 250,000 rubles a month repairing military vehicles that he must now return to earning 45,000 repairing tractors? Well, he will not. He'll riot, he'll refuse, or he'll leave. Multiply that now by millions. Russia will face a moment where those who survived will demand something the state cannot give. A normal life. And the state will respond the only way it only knows, repression. But repression does not create bread, fear does not create doctors, propaganda does not replace plumbing, and patriotism does not grow wheat. So the Kremlin delays the end of the war, not because they believe they can win, but because peace is more dangerous to them than the war. The longer this war continues, the worse the crush will be. Just imagine a slingshot being slowly pulled away. If you release it too soon, it might just scratch your skin. But pull it all the way until maximum stretch and, well, the rock goes straight to your skull. And because Putin cannot afford peace, he also cannot afford victory. He needs a forever war, at least small, brewing, simmering, but war. Something that keeps the machine moving just enough to prevent collapse, but not enough to resolve anything. This is not strategy. This is fear. This is survival of the regime at the expense of the nation. Every day of the conflict continues. Russia loses more trained workers, more human capital, more infrastructure, more trust, more future. The fact is that war today will stand silent tomorrow. The money that flows today will vanish the moment the guns stop. The men who left to fight will never return the same. Some will not return at all. Putin has pushed Russia into a place where peace means collapse and war means slow collapse. One is a cliff, the other one is the oil-smeared staircase. Both lead to the same drop. This is the price of a war that should never have been started in the first place. And it is the future Russia will have to face. The day after the guns go quiet, when the smoke clears and there is nothing left to burn and nobody left to blame. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more just like this. If you wish to support our work, you can become our Patreon member, the best way to support what we do here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe